All right. Well, here we go. We're featuring Kyle from RRBuildings. Really appreciate the time, Kyle. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Eric.
Yeah, so the whole point of this series is to learn a little bit more about pros, learn a little bit more about construction technology, where things are going, and also just a little bit about you and why you got into this. So just to kick it off, would love to learn a little bit more about you, your story, your background, and really what got you into construction.
Sure. So, I'm in Northern Illinois, so a little bit south of you guys, and I went to school, went through college, got a computer science degree because when I was growing up, that was what we were taught. You had to go to college, and computers were the big thing, so that's where you wanted to go. I was excited about that, but when I got done with school and started my first career in the IT world, it just really didn't have a whole lot of enjoyment. Like I enjoyed technology, but I did not like working in it every day. It just wasn't the industry for me. It didn't feel very gratifying. But just by chance, I was given an opportunity to purchase a home for me and my future wife because we hadn't been married yet. We were engaged and we remodeled it, which I didn't know a ton about remodeling, but my dad had done it his whole life, in our homes that we grew up in. So I was around it. And we took it on, and man, I just fell in love with the fact that I could do something and see a result versus in my career, it was kind of like this, fairy tale thing. It was, you couldn't really see it. It was just happening behind the scenes in the computer. So it was very gratifying. And just by happenstance, I did that. Some friends and family happened to, see that we were doing that, asked if we could do little projects on their homes. And I realized, man, this is a career. Like, I could do this. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I was going to be swinging a hammer for a daily job. But there was just a sense of like real pleasure every time I got done with a job, not just getting paid, but like seeing something that I built. And that was in 2007 that I started that business. I never worked for anybody. I just kind of watched a lot of This Old House, find home building magazines, and just when I had a problem, I figured out a way to fix it, solve it, and then learn from it.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I was always in the corner playing Legos and just sort
Yeah.
of like, taking what's on a set of drawings and making it into reality. And, I spent the last 15 years in construction as well. And for me, it was really about taking, a whole set of complex problems, whole set of design challenges and stepping back and seeing it in reality. And moving into technology, it's interesting that you were sort of in technology and now in construction. I was in construction, now in technology, and I sort of relay it similar to construction because you're taking blueprints, you're taking a concept, you're taking designers, you're taking architects, you're taking engineers, and you're putting that into a product that you can physically see, touch, and feel. And for us, when we started, launching our first set of apps. That was really exciting. That was really fulfilling, but you don't actually get to see it physically and touch it. So really
Yeah.
cool to hear about your career. Um, in terms of the projects, I mean, I could see that you're all over Instagram, YouTube. Most of your projects are fairly specific. Is that because of like the area that you're in and the types of buildings, or is it mostly about the projects that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think it's more or less, I when I started, I did everything. I mean, I literally would do plumbing work, electrical work, I'd frame, I'd trim, do cabinetry. It didn't matter. Like I just in a small community, I grew up with a community of 1,000 people, graduated with 19. Everybody knew everybody. It wasn't this, people just wanted the word of mouth, builder. They wanted somebody that their buddies used, their family used, and they could trust. And so they'd hire me. I would just kind of self-perform everything. I never subcontracted anything out. And that kind of taught me a little bit about everything that I, didn't really know at the time. And it just, when I did my first post frame building, which is what we specialize in now, it kind of was like the culmination of everything I really enjoyed. I enjoyed taking a pile of materials and building something. I enjoyed being outdoors, which, in the remodeling space, you're always in somebody's house. You're, required to clean up and keep tidy, which I like to do, but it was just a lot easier when you were out in, somebody's yard building them a shed, They weren't under the same, timelines. You didn't have a bathroom that needed to be finished so somebody could use it. So there was a lot of things that were big pluses for me by sticking with the post frame, but mainly it felt good. It was something that I really loved, and that was around 2000. I'd say 2013, 2012 when I started doing mainly post frame, and then over the next couple of years, I really, just set myself up in the marketplace locally to be 100% post frame, and that's I get a lot of calls for everything because I think there's a huge shortage of contractors. So people see me, they know that I do construction, but we just do post frame.
And do you get called like from all over the U.S. to do post frames? And would you be willing to go outside of your state, or are you pretty stacked with work in your own state?
I would say on the daily, because of social media growth and how big that's become, I would say, probably a good estimate of like 20 to 30 emails every day from people like looking for post frame information. They figure that I'm not going to travel, so do I know anybody? But yeah, I think it would be a very easy to say that if I wanted to scale my business, you could probably scale it across the entire U.S. I get requests from other countries. Um, there's just a lot of people looking for help, and it doesn't seem like enough people out there helping.
Yeah. And kind of flipping into, business and social media. I mean, like, how big is your business? And, is there certain goals in terms of size that you want to take your business today? And then, sort of on top of that, like with social media, I think you have the opportunity to build your business quite large. But, as I can attest with my last company, building the bigger the business, it doesn't necessarily turn into more profits. I mean, more larger businesses come with more people, and then you always have to sustain that. But curious to get your point of view there.
Yeah, I thought when I got started, I was going to grow a big business. But to be honest, I think when I started, I also did it for a way of life. I wanted, instead of, running the rat race, going into a corporate job, working your way up a corporate ladder, not really having any way of determining your own success because it's based on the judgment and the, willingness for someone else to give you a raise or to move you up that ladder. I really wanted to start my own thing, be my own boss, create my own legacy, but more importantly, like just live a life that was enjoyable. And at one point, I started getting more guys. I had three, and would break up and do multiple jobs. We could kind of start one and finish another at the same time. And I realized that A, that was way more stressful. B, it didn't really bring in a whole lot more money because you had more overhead. And I thought it was either I take it really big and get to a level where, all those overheads could be covered by the amount of work getting done, or I would be in this awkward spot of, not not quite being able to get away from the job site and just manage because I still needed to be on the job site. And then also just knowing that being on the job site was what made me happy. So it was kind of like if I get to a position where I have to manage people, I won't be as happy as I am doing the work. But at the same time, post frame is I would say it's a young man's game in the sense that it's very labor intensive. I'm 38 years old, and I know I can't do it at this level forever. I mean, I hope to be able to continue to do it as long as I can. But thankfully, social media, when you talk about business, when social media came around, it was for me just a way to share what we were doing to set ourselves apart from our competition. I wanted my clients or prospective clients to see, an in-depth look into what, my business was and what product we, were going to bring to the table for them. And it turned into something much bigger. And now I would say that business, it probably takes up an equal amount of definitely headspace, maybe not exactly the same amount of time, but it's a business. I mean, I literally have to run that thing, and it requires kind of feeding that beast by creating content, so.
And do you have employees on the social media side, or are you doing all of that yourself? And are you doing it all yourself, more or less, on the build side as well? And you splitting your time?
Right. So every day I go to the job site. The schedule is typically like a 7:30 to 5, give or take, depending on weather and other things that come up. But we typically are on the job site for 9 hours a day. Um, and I do all the social media, and I got one guy that works for me on site. So, because social media has become such an integral part of the business, and people expect us and a lot of times hire us because we are filming, they want to see that as well. They think it's pretty cool. On site, maybe you're working 8 hours out of that 9 hours, and the other hour is spent maybe moving a camera. But I've gotten so used to it, and so has Greg, the guy that works for me, that it's just kind of seamless. It just happens. Most of the magic happens at home at the end of my day, which is where the second job comes in, and you're sitting in the office editing and kind of pulling it all together to create some sort of a story.
Gotcha. So you're doing all the editing yourself.
Yeah, I do everything, and honestly, that's like top of my list, is to find somebody to edit. I would love a full-time person that just videographer on site, and then they go and they edit half days here and back in the office or something. That would be ideal, but I'm so type A that it's really hard for me just to like hire somebody. I want to find the right person.
Totally. I mean, that's what it's all about, having some great people that share the passion, share the vision, so they can take what's in your head and put it out there.
Right.
No, that's great. I mean, really love to see just you building your social media empire, and even for us, I mean, that's been great. Just as we think about building a community, just helping different builders understand what's out there, different suppliers, what are new products available, and that's what really drives me as well. I'd love to sort of share that background, share the industry expertise as well.
Yeah, I think that social media is its best when the people that are sharing are helping educate others. I mean, that's where the most value comes in. Yes, entertainment is always good, but people they watch entertainment and they keep scrolling. When you're educating somebody, you're bringing value, and they want more of that. And that's where I think social media has become so powerful, is the people that are out there educating.
Would love to just flip the table and talk a little bit about technology. I mean, over the last 5 years, I've definitely seen a lot of different technology becoming adopted within the construction industry. There's a lot of different softwares, even just across the different verticals. But curious around, your company, the size, if you've explored new technology, if you've adopted any sort of technology in your business, anywhere from like project management to procurement to invoicing, kind of curious around there.
I think, all my suppliers have moved obviously digital. So, all the websites that you can go to manage all of your, ordering. My steel supplier has just brought on like steel ordering online, which, seemed like that should have been there a long time ago. I think our industry is very slow to, just because it's full of people that, are just, hey, we're gonna go out and swing a hammer. We don't really need technology to build a house. But once you get a piece of that technology and you realize that it can save you time, I think it's going to, we're going to quickly ramp up to where there's more technology in construction. For me personally, I like to figure out my estimate, so I don't use a piece of software. I've invested in software to help me do that, and I found that, um, I was always changing things and kind of redeveloping the way we do things to be faster and better. And so the technology in PostFrame, the software that we were using, it wasn't really doing that. It was so simplistic and basic that it wasn't producing the results that I needed. So I still do a lot of my stuff by hand, but I say that all of it is done, digitally, in a sense that I have like a list of things and ways to make it easy, so that I just kind of do the inputs, and then I can send off and order everything online. But I still physically sit down and do. I don't have like an architect or an engineer or some software, give me a list of my supplies that I need to order.
Gotcha. And how about on like the project management perspective? I mean, you see a lot of these different softwares out there. Some of them are a lot more clunkier than others, but what's your view on project management software in general?
Personally, I think it's great for people that are genuinely managing projects. I do one job at a time, right? So my whole philosophy is that, if it's just going to be me and one other guy, it's one crew. if I was building for somebody else, or if somebody was building for me, I would want them to be 100% focused on me and do my project and then move on, right? So that's the way I do it, which means that as far as project management goes, like I'm on site every day. I don't need software to kind of line things up and tell me what's going on that job site, just because in my business model, I don't have multiple things going on. I don't have multiple subcontractors on different job sites. So for me, I don't really need it. But, you know, if I did, if I did have that going on, I would have to have that sort of system in place because I'm not good with, just keeping track of it in the back of my head. And I think that, I know a lot of guys that use things like Builder Trend and other stuff out there. It's just not for me, it's not necessary.
Overall, based on your experience, just across bigger companies, smaller companies, where do you think tech adoption is most required, and where do you think it's lacking? Like, where do you think tech is going to really bring efficiency?
So I think that the biggest thing or the biggest issue we have in our industry is education. I genuinely think that, most guys out there, they come to the job site, but if they don't know what they're doing, that's when things get slowed down, when you're scratching your head, when you're trying to figure things out, because everybody has a device on their person these days. I mean, you can get all the information you want right there. And I think if we can, when you think about it, I don't remember the exact statistic, but when I heard this, it really kind of hit home. It's like somewhere in the 80 or 90% of all construction workers are on like a crew of like four or less or something like that, which means that all of these different crews are all implementing their own education system. So when you come work for a small crew like me, you learn my way of building. You don't necessarily learn anything other than what I know. It means that it may be good, it may be bad, but you're never going to, if you get into a union, the union's going to have the classes and you're going to be able to learn and get, re-educated as things change. But in general, the construction industry doesn't have a good way of centralizing the education of doing, tasks that should be done to code and correctly, whether that be safety or, anything. And I think that that's where you know, the biggest thing that could be brought is more education in a centralized way for contractors.
Just flipping over, back to procurement, and you talked about, you're ordering online from your suppliers. How do you manage your procurement? Do you do it like before the job gets set up? Do you order things as you go? How do you track the orders? Do you do phone, text, email? Do you just go to their websites? Curious around how you sort of procure most of your materials these days.
Sure. I always think that I'm kind of an anomaly. And when people ask me, like, how do you keep everything straight, Kyle? How do you, the back end of the business is the hardest part for most contractors, staying organized, keeping things moving forward. And, for me, I've got this thing down like to a science to where, let's say I start one of our building projects. I've got a list that says, okay, these are the items that you need to order to build your project. Like mine are, I have this like box that everything fits in, and then there's usually some anomalies that are outside of that box, but I can order everything I need for one of our buildings that you see us build online, probably in about 30 minutes or less. I can come up with the entire estimate of what the materials are needed. And so I do that. I can email it to my suppliers, and that's it. I mean, for me, it is that easy. So I think I'm a little bit of an anomaly. I don't need to, track all these different, supplies going in and out.
And how many different suppliers are you ordering typically from on these builds?
Typically, I've got like a supplier that does mainframe. I've got a supplier that does all of my exterior, and then I've got one that does all my, the odds and ends stuff that are usually a little bit more specialized. So typically three, but most of the time I can do everything with two.
Gotcha. And then where do some of like the big box stores play in? Is that sort of like the odds and sods, like in between there?
Yeah. Typically, that's kind of like the oddball things that you need where you got to run in and get something, or if a customer, specifically wants an item and they go pick it out, or they say, I seen this, it's such and such, go, that's what I want to use. But I try to use I try to use my local supplier for everything major, just because you get a little bit better service. But
You have these great relationships with the local supplier, and
yep, yep.
is most of the ordering done just through email, or do you like have a portal where you can log in and sort of like see your orders? And I guess once you place the order, like how do you know when things are coming, and how do you know to track those invoices so you can actually put it together in the billing?
Sure. So I've got online portals for my main suppliers. I can order most things online, and then, set up deliveries, track the invoices, see where my bills are at, put job costing, in place so I can take care of that. So it's almost all online at this point. I don't make a phone call or anything like that to put orders these days. And as far as scheduling and seeing when things are going to be delivered, usually somebody on the back end is calling me and saying, hey, they're going to be, or shooting me an email that says, hey, they're going to be, bringing that over on Thursday.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. I mean, speaking of procurement, you know, how do you feel the industry has responded to Toolbox and the whole philosophy around, you know, what we do? And can you see, a lot of contractors benefiting from a company like ours?
Yeah, I think that, time is money, right? And so if you guys are out there taking, or putting time back on a contractor's plate by taking some of that off their shoulders and helping with the procurement, the scheduling, the delivery, you know, I just think it's a win-win for everybody, right? Because personally, anything I can do to free up some time usually gets eaten up by doing something else, because that's what I'm trying to do, is free up time to complete another task. But we're in a world now where it genuinely, like, I always think to myself, you see these old movies or these old shows where, like, the buddies are sitting out front and they're sitting in their garage just watching the neighborhood. I don't know how that would even be possible in my life, right? Like, so anything that can take me to that place where I can, like, enjoy just sitting around doing nothing for a moment. That sounds great. And I think what you guys are doing, Toolbox, and just trying to take some of that load off the contractor is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, as most business owners like yourself, if you can get 30 minutes back to spend more time on your social media, or 30 more minutes to spend with your customer, or 30 more minutes to spend with your billing. I mean, for us, we really developed this company with a mission of enabling construction professionals to build faster, smarter, more efficient. And from day one, that's been our mission, and super excited to help evolve the construction landscape. And the reality is, there's less skilled workers entering the workforce. And I actually think there's a pandemic happening as we speak, where there's an incredible amount of demand for construction, homes, buildings, not enough workers coming in, and a lot of workers retiring. So the only way I see the amount of work being able to be executed is through technology and utilizing different services and processes out there. And that's my overall view.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's kind of scary, really. I remember when I started, it was an '07, '08, and that whole crash was happening, and people weren't building new homes. They were staying home, remodeling. And I was like, oh, this is great. I think there's a good opportunity for me because I'm not this big builder. People are trying to save money. They're hiring this young guy who's not, demanding these high wages and has all this overhead, right? Well, you fast forward, and now it's like, uh, you can't even I can't even get through a day without telling people, sorry, like, we're booked into 20. I genuinely think, I mean, I'm kind of scared. I always lay out the schedule and I try to figure out, like, okay, how far out are we realistically? And I genuinely think that I'm in like 2024. Like, if you want a building, it's probably going to be in 2024. What that does is, I mean, if you're a young person trying to find a career, you jump into the trades, you don't even have to be that skilled to get work because of just the sheer, like, default. There's no other people to do it. And if you just are a good person, you get an opportunity to get in, make a name for yourself right now, and start making real wages that are meaningful for you or your future family, you know? So I just think that I tell everybody, if you're hesitant, if you think that you like to build things or it could be good for you, now is the time to get into the trades, because as you said, as people continue to retire, there's going to be an even greater demand, which is going to mean you don't have to be amazing and have this big name. You're just going to by default get phone calls because you're one of the only guys in your area doing it.
Yeah, no, totally. In terms of, you know, from your vantage point, what do you think is going to be like the real next big game changer within the construction technology industry?
Oh man, I mean, I wish I knew that, because I bet if I did, I could probably get ahead of it and make a ton of money and do something. I really don't know, because I think technology is necessary for us to, continue to grow. Maybe this whole metaverse thing that, Facebook has created will give a place for training, so you can go in and actually, be on a job site without being on a job site where you're not safe, where you're not messing up somebody's project, where you can go and, instead of reading a book or watching some online YouTube videos, you can go and actually start building something and learn hands on. I think that would be pretty cool, right? I think it's a little bit weird, the whole metaverse thing, and people logging in and living a life there. But to use that concept from a virtual reality standpoint and an augmented reality, and be able to like manipulate and work with things with your hands, that's probably, you know, the biggest thing in my eyes that I could see happening, because I think in the end of the day, you still have to build. You can't use, technology to swing a hammer at this point. We haven't created robots to do that. And I hope we never do, because I think that, just a personal touch is important.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting, and it's that notion of like learning by doing. And when I started in the trades, I mean, I'm sure you can attest too, like the amount of mistakes you make in the field, and then you learn, you iterate, and you hope you don't do it again. But I mean, that's a really interesting concept about being in a different sort of reality from a training perspective. That makes complete sense to me. I also think that there's going to be a lot more advancements from like a design modeling and like integration perspective, especially as like 3D and even like getting into 3D printing. I think is something that is incredibly exciting, and we're starting to see that with certain companies, especially like customization, like the amount of customization on some of these custom homes. I think there's going to be some really cool technologies to watch there. I know we're almost out of time, but just kind of flipping it back to the young group. I know you talked about the young professionals, people that want to get into the trade. Anything you'd like to share with the young professionals really entering into the industry to make an impact?
Yeah, I get asked all the time from young people like, "Hey, I want to maybe get into the trades. Like, how can I fast forward and really, you know, make something right away?" And honestly, I mean, it's like you said, you got to make a lot of mistakes. You got to learn from them, because that's how it works. But I always also tell my kids, learn from other people's mistakes, and that way you don't have to make that mistake. So what I mean by that is, we have created such a community of information out there with social media where you can learn and see things happening. And there's so much information out there, so much content. So, use it. If you're just getting into the trade, I had to watch, old episodes of This Old House or read a magazine, and you don't get to really choose what you're watching. It's just whatever is coming up, right? You can go out, search on YouTube, find somebody doing every task out there, and they're going to share with you all the things that they messed up on so that you don't mess up on. What a time to be like learning a skilled trade when you have that much information out there. Um, so, use it. That's what I would say to somebody. Use all the technology around you to really jumpstart your career. And the other thing I always say is, if you're going to do construction and you want to start a business, you want to like, make a name or a brand for yourself. I found it to be almost too simple. If you just answer your phone as a contractor and show up when you're supposed to, and then do the job, like those simple things that you would think, well, yeah, that's what you should do. 90% of the guys do not do it. It is the continuing theme of every conversation with any customer that calls me. They put calls in and never got a phone call back. It just boggles my mind. And, it seems so simple, but I honestly got jobs strictly because I called somebody back. So that's always my advice.
100% agree with you. I mean, just like being incredibly reliable,
Yeah.
and really focusing on customer service. For us, one of our core values at Toolbx is to be like extremely customer centric. And I take this from my last building company. I was literally sitting across the table from some of the wealthiest people, and I was one of the youngest guys building custom homes. And what really helped us win these projects is I turned to these clients and I said, you can call me any time of the day and I will answer your call, and I will problem solve any sort of problem or challenge that comes our way. And it's just like really stepping out and taking that customer service to the next step that I think can really allow great contractors to succeed and grow their business. And thinking of your business like a business as well, thinking about the things that you should be charging for, because your time is money. And I think the more education that can be out there, I think the more profitable contractors and builders can be. It's a very underserved industry, and I just get super excited to be able to partake in helping elevate this industry any way I can. So
yeah,
I really appreciate that insight.
Yeah, no, it's the best part. It's honestly what really keeps me going anymore is the sharing, the response from people saying, that, hey, you changed the way we do business for the better. That's awesome. That's what it's all about.
I know I missed the last question, but if there's something you wish you knew, before you started in construction, and if there's any valuable mistakes or lessons we can learn from.
I think that when I got started, if I would have kind of been able to set up the business from the beginning versus a lot of contractors, they just start swinging a hammer, taking, checks from clients and then giving estimates, right? If I could have set up an accounting, business, and if I could have had all of that laid out, if I would have had my marketing, and understood what I was going to be doing and focused on that from the beginning, I could be 10 years ahead of where I'm at now. Unless I were to say to my son coming in, like, okay, you're ready to start working. Here's what I did. This is what you need to do. Most contractors don't share that information with a competitor that's getting into the business, right? It's either passed on family members or, it's just lost. And then the next guy has to figure out the path. I think that, genuinely, it's like I said, it's not just having the solution, but educating people on how the solution is going to help them and getting it implemented, because change is so scary for people that do the same thing every day.
Kyle, really appreciate your time. And, I think this is really exciting to be able to spend time with someone that's really built a great business in the industry, and looking forward to speaking again soon.
Yeah, Eric, I really appreciate you having me on, man.